All right. It's time to finish up the Lord of the Rings trilogy with The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. I'm Scotty, and you're not. Now, Return of the King won 11 Oscars. Does it deserve the Oscars? To quote Sean Connery, yes. It is a great film. Now, while I still hold the first one higher than the other two, this is a great film. If you want battles, there's battles. If you want a little bit of horror sprinkled in, there's a little horror sprinkled in. You want love stories, there's love stories. If you want endless endings, well, that maybe not that, but yes. It, of course, picks up where the last one left off. With Frodo and first of all, we get the backstory of Shmigo. He and his brother Deagle, because everyone who's a brother has to rhyme. Just look at The Hobbit, Balin and Malin and whatever. Yeah, he and his brother are going fishing, and Deagle finds the ring, and Shmigo kills him, and slowly turns into Gollum. We cut to now, and Gollum is slowly leading them to their doom. Her, which is a spider named Shelar, I think it's called. And he even tries to frame Sam eating all the food and everything. And eventually it ends up working as Frodo tells Sam to go home. Which, that's kind of stupid. You're pretty much in Mordor by this point. And you just say, go home. For all that, I don't think so. But, yeah. Not yet. Giant spider. Which is sort of a sidetrack. Look, there is one big problem now that I watched all three of these films. There is one big problem with all three films that I need to discuss here, and that's too much sidetracking. They set out to do one thing. Their one quest was to take the ring to Mordor and drop it in Mount Doom. For all intents and purposes, it should have just been like Randall says in Clerks 2. You want the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Here you go. Here's the first movie. Here's the second movie. Are you ready for the third movie? But they had so much fighting and everything into this. I mean, from a point of view of, Aragorn and all them, I see it. And it even rounds out Merry and Pippin's story as they become warriors, basically. They help save the world. They have a purpose from just literally falling on to Frodo and Sam to now help saving the world. Middle Earth, or whatever. They come full circle. However, like with Frodo and Sam, it's not as simple. Just like you may say that, like with Aragorn and them, they were with Frodo, and then Frodo had to go on his own. So they went to go save Merry and Pippin. But then they got taken out, and are now in a whole new thing, and they're fighting in a war. Which, if you think about it, did just come out of nowhere. Like, I know Sauron is a big thing, but it's like, okay, we're going to fight in a war, and we're going to do that, but okay, like we need something for them to do, so they're gonna fight in a war now. And and are we gonna discuss the part where Aragorn and the others are in Mordor? So is Frodo and Sam, but they never once crossed paths. They're in separate places because they went off the beaten path because they went the long way around, basically, because of Shmigo. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of sidetracking. How many times did they stop? Like, they were on a journey, and they had to stop at Bree. They met Aragorn, and they had to run. Then they got to Rivendell, where they stopped. But then they went ahead, and they got to the Mines of Moria, and they stopped. And then they fought off the Balrog, and Gandalf died, and then they stopped. And then they had another fight against the orcs, and they separated, and they left. And they found Gollum, and they went forward. But then they were taken by Faramir, and they stopped. And basically the whole second half of Two Towers, they stopped. And we're just like with Faramir. Because, and it just, I don't know if it is that way, but it seems that way. Well, if we just let them keep going, they would have reached Mordor quicker. So they stop constantly. Even here, if Smeagol hadn't detoured them to the spider, they probably would have got there quicker too. And why didn't Smeagol take them the wrong way to begin with? He didn't. He swore an oath. And then Gollum came back. I will say, though, there is a lot of good in this, too. Like, the battle scenes are actually pretty freaking awesome. The music pumping and everything, and that speech that Aragorn throws out, fantastic. You even get Erwin, well, Miranda Otto, I keep forgetting her name. She kicking ass. Even though this is her first battle, but they said they trained women to fight in the last one. She gets to actually fight here and kick some ass. Arwen shows up to be sort of half dead, and then is with Aragorn at the end. Okay. I don't know. But, Eowyn, or whatever her name is, Miranda Otto's character, she kills the Witch King. That's cool, despite never fighting before. She has help from Mary, of course, but yeah, they become warriors. They fight and they win, and yeah. But again, they're getting ready to go to war, and then all of a sudden, side quest for our 3 fellowship members, because they have to go get the Ghost King warrior people to help them in the battle. And they do. But he says, and he doesn't say anything. There's a weird thing with the skulls, and then he says yes, and it's kind of weird. But yeah, it's just kind of another side track, because this thing is like 3.5 hours long. 4 if you're watching the extended cut. It's a long movie. Needless to say, I'm not doing any more reviews tonight. This was taxing. I shouldn't have tried to do them all in one day, but this was taxing. There's a reason why I never watched more than one before. This is long ass 9.5 hours in Middle Earth, and I want to put the ring on and disappear and just. Oh. But yeah, oh my god. I think maybe the worst thing about these movies is that they're so fucking long. Why does each movie need to be 3 hours long? It just and you can't just say, oh, it's justified. The fact that there are extended cuts that took stuff out and it's still 3 hours long is just Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's too much. It's too much. I think that's my biggest negative for all of these movies is they're too long. I mean, the first one felt long. I enjoyed it the most, but it still felt long. I think that was my biggest problem with that. I gave it a perfect score, but it still felt long. The second one, you could feel it more, and this one, you could really, even though there were exciting fight scenes and a lot of cool things going on, it goes on, and it didn't know how to end. Let's talk about the ending, or the endings. So, we get our climactic battle, which, again, much as Randall said, you just throw it in there, but that'd be anticlimactic. So, Shmigo shows up, and they have a little fight. Frodo goes invisible, because he goes up there, he's going to throw it, but no, it's my ring. He's been taken over by the ring. There's a point in this film where Sam has the ring. He's like, well, I'll share your load. I'll take the load off you and take the ring. But he ends up having the ring. And this is the point where it's like, yes, Sam should carry the ring because Frodo is way too far gone from now. Frodo's like, give me the ring, Sam. And Sam gives it to him. Instead of saying, no, Mr. Frodo, you've gone too far. I'm going to carry it. Of course, it might end up with Frodo cutting a bitch, but I don't know. It just seems like Sam should have carried it the rest of the way. But if we did that, we wouldn't have the conflict where he goes to throw it in. And much like Isildur, he says no. Before Shmigo shows up, Gollum shows up, attacks him. He puts the ring on, he's invisible, but Gollum's able to find the finger, bite it off, and they both fall into the lava, except for Frodo has main character powers and survives, but Shmigo falls into the lava, as does the ring. The tower falls, everyone celebrates, Aragorn becomes king, and you think, there's like multiple endings. The first one is, Frodo and Sam are stuck on a mountain, but then here comes Gandalf and his bird, and then he wakes up in bed, and everyone's there and happy. And I've heard complaints like when everybody comes in, he names everyone for Legolas. But if you think about it, Legolas has only said one thing to him, and you'll have my bow. That's all he said. And you'll have my bow. Then he says, Aragorn, Gimli. He doesn't say Legolas. They didn't have that big of a connection. The other two he did, especially Aragorn. But, and then he marries Arwen. Aragorn, not Frodo. They all bow to the hobbits, because they were brave warriors. Yeah, and the film, again, looks like it's going to end, but it cuts back to them going back to the Hobbit, to the Shire, where Sam and finally speaks up to that girl that he likes, and they end up getting married. And then you think it's going to end again, but then they have another ending where Frodo meets up with Bilbo, who's now really, really old. He wants to see the ring again. Let it go, old man. And he decides to go with him and the elves and Aragorn into this afterlife world or whatever. I don't know if Aragorn is there, but I don't know. They just go in there and they have a cry, and this is that. It's a cry moment. You should have ended with them bowing to them. Because even this isn't the ending, because after this, we go back to the Shire, where you have Sam reuniting with his wife and kids now, and going into their house, and that's how it ends. You should have just cut it at the bowing. There's just so much with this ending. I understand, some of it was probably in the book, and seeing him going off the thing. Maybe you could have ended it with them going through the thing. You don't know yet to show Sam with his wife and kids. I don't know, but it's seems very tacked on. There's a million endings, but yeah, this is a great film. Little things here and there, much like the Two Towers, but it's still a great film. And much like the Twin Towers, I'm gonna have to say that when it comes to the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, it is pretty good. As you can see, I hold the first one very high because it is the one I watched the most, is the one I have the most nostalgia for. The other two, not so much, mostly because I never had the urge to watch all three of them like I did now, and watching all three of them, I can see why. They're so long. Getting through all these is very taxing. Safe to say I won't be doing any more reviews tonight. Time for Scotty to relax. Tomorrow, you will see more from Scotty. But for now, relaxation is key. Till then, what are your thoughts on Lord of the Rings Return of the King? In the comments below, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.